today at the University of Utah. How long has it been since you were in Utah?
I can't really remember, but I think it has been about 2.5 years.
That's about the time I think it was when you were here. Did I see you last time you came?
Yes, very briefly.
In the early 1960s, what happened here? You came for a meeting. What was it?
Well, it was a meeting of concerned parents who could not decide whether to keep the first oral program in the state of Utah and whether to support the oral program at Utah State School for the Deaf in Ogden. The deaf community was opposed to the development of a program for oral communication skills, and I had to explain to the parents that they had to give the children an opportunity to try and learn how to speak.
Arthur, you learned to talk. You learned to be very oral in your life. Tell us a little bit about your childhood. When did you become deaf?
I was born profoundly deaf, and my parents made the decision to teach me how to speak, how to read. In those days, there was nothing about the use of residual hearing, but I learned to speak, as you can see right now. My speech may not be perfect, but I think it's understandable for practical purposes in everyday life. I was not brought up to be a public speaker, but to be part of the community. I went to a school for the deaf in San Francisco until I was 12 years old. And then I was mainstreamed all the way through college without any support services. And I was able to hold a position in the publishing world for many years. And now I am president of Julie Hesterman, that belonged to my father. Without oral communication, I could not possibly do all this.
Arthur, where did you go to college?
I went to Stanford University in Palo Alto, California.
What was your major?
English literature.
English literature?
Yes.
That must have been fun.
It was fantastic because math and science were my band.
I see. How long you were in the publishing business for a long time?
Oh, I could say a good quarter of a century.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one sister who is also a teacher of the deaf.
And I understand an excellent one.
No, she went to offer pupils yesterday. She started them talking.
Is she still teaching?
No, she does volunteer work in working with parents of hearing impaired infants.
How much residual hearing do you have?
I don't see your part, but not see your crime. I do not understand, but I do know that I start at 85%. No, 85% on at the beginning and improve to over 100, some between 1,000 and 2,000.
Do you wear hearing aids in both ears?
Yes, I do. And I'm very sorry for thinking that I've hearing aid when I was a small boy, because I noticed I cannot to know what your voice is. I think I'm speaking right now at the right level, but without hearing it, and probably be speaking very high, at a very high pitch.
Now, you said you went through school without any supportive help, that is, from interpreters or note takers. Recently, a lot of work has been done to provide note takers and services for oral interpreters or manual interpreters. What is your feeling about interpreters, either manual and oral interpreters or note taking? Do you think it's a good idea to provide these support services now?
I do know that I find interpreting very helpful to me when I go to meetings, and I imagine in some cases if I went to college I would find it very helpful. But I am one of those people who like to think for himself, and when somebody is talking, I cannot always listen to the whole thing, because I like to stop and think what was said before, and that is a problem for me. If I don't stop to think about what is being said, I forget the whole thing, what the professor said or anyone. It sounds like hearing person who needs to stop and turn off his hearing and think a little bit what's being said to be able to understand what's going on. Everyone, but you can't do that when you are watching and interpreting for some reason. You cannot stop and then go back and take up in the middle of a sentence what's being said. That one of the problem, but on the whole, I think interpreting is very helpful for people. However, when you have an interpreter, you cannot take notes, and that's where note taking comes in. But personally, I don't think it's necessary to have both. I think note taking alone is enough for academic subject, because it gives you time to read and to think about what is being said. This is my personal feeling. This is, that does not mean that other people feel the same way I do. However, when I was at college, I used to collect notes from different students and put them together and type them up and keep them copies back to the student. That way, notes were very far. It helps them as well as me. I had to think how to put the notes together, and that's how I studied.
So you shared with them and they shared with you. You were not dependent on any of them. You shared information.
Yeah, very good. That's very helpful. That's why the question process maybe too much emphasis on support services and feel rather strongly you must give anyone, no matter you, enough rope so that they can stand on their own feet, because this is what they are going to have to when they go out in the world.
Yes, in note-taking also, when someone takes notes for you, you can watch the professor or the person at the front end. You then can get the ideas from that individual without having to go through someone else. That's probably another strong point in favor of note-taking.
Yeah, well, I can read notes, have to look at the professor. Sometimes I can follow the professor, but most people do not know how to talk.
Yes, I know. It's very difficult. In terms of oral interpreting, what kind of skills do you think the oral interpreter should have?
First of all, they must have ears that are easy to follow. So many people do not have flexible ears, and it's very hard to follow. So the most important thing is to have a flexible upper ear, because when they cannot move, it's very hard to look at the ear. Second, the interpreter should be an actor or an actress, so to emphasize the very big sound, facial expression, body acting, like when I'm doing, like moving my hand around, to emphasize the point. That's normal. And our interpreter should not be so easy and talk crazy. But talk crazy, not that on a normal radio, should be natural, relax, and talk as if he's having a conversation with someone. Those are the most important points, I think.
In terms of personal appearance with clothing or a dress, should they dress with loud clothing, conservative clothing, or what are your feelings?
Well, I don't think it's so important as anything. Plain clothes might reflect anything. I may be too strong. Yes, soft colors would be better, but on the other hand, anything is very important, because there may be too many shadows on the face, and it's very confusing because the shadows playing with one another on the face. Sometimes anything is so thick, it's impossible to see the lips. Oh yes, another thing, I insisted that even man should for everything to emphasize the lips, because when lips have no color, it's very hard to follow the lips, because it blends with the face. The lips have to stand out. And this is what complaint I have about women who prefer the natural look.
All right. They're very excellent suggestions. Now, before we leave, Arthur would like to have you read a short excerpt from Helen Keller. Would you do that for us now?
Yes, I feel. The children who has honestly tried to speak. So far, she has never heard. To come out of the prison of silence, found no tone of love, no song of bird, no strain of music, half a peace that stillness can forget the thrill of surprise. The joy of his coffee came over him when he entered his front phone. Only such someone can appreciate the eagerness with which I talked to my joy, to stones, trees, ferns, and dumb animals. All the delight I felt when my God moved round to me, or my dogs obeyed my commands. It is an unspeakable boon to me to be able to speak in big fun that need no interpretation.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. It is my pleasure.
Thank you, Bunny. This is a continuation of our interviews of people with hearing impairment relative to their ideas and perceptions about themselves, attitudes towards others in preparation for our various workshops that we're having. Today we have another very exciting person with us. We'll ask her to introduce herself and tell us a little bit about her background.
Okay. I'm Sue DeHaan, and I teach currently at the Utah School for the Deaf in Ogden. I'm teaching a primary class. It's a kind of a multiply handicapped class. They're hearing impaired and they have other handicaps. I've taught 1 year there. Okay, my background, I went to school at San Jose State University in speech and hearing. I received my BA in speech pathology and audiology. I did some graduate work there, and then I transferred to the University of Utah in Salt Lake and completed my graduate study there in the area of special education with an emphasis on deaf education. And I received my certification there and am planning to complete my master's there also. Well, okay, I have a hearing impairment myself. I lost my hearing when I was, 20 years old. I got spinal meningitis, and it happened so fast that all of a sudden, a week later, I woke up in the hospital and found myself with no hearing at all, and it was very frustrating at first. I didn't know what to do. It was kind of a shock, and it took me about a couple of months to realize that my hearing would never come back. And I went to a number of specialists, and they told me to wait about 6 months and see if my hearing would come back by itself. And so I went for 6 months with no hearing aids, no help at all, and that was the most frustrating time of my life. I felt I was missing out on so much. The experience was just so frustrating and devastating. I couldn't believe it. That then when I was finally given aids, and I wear 2 aids, it was just it changed my life just so much. I couldn't believe I went to my parents. I told them I can hear, and ever since that time, I decided that I would go into speech and hearing. I didn't really know where I was going to go, but I decided that I would work with children who had speech and hearing problems, and I kind of focused on the hearing problems and wanted to work with hearing impaired children. So that's how I got into working with the deaf.
Sue, in terms of communicating with other people even now, what do you find to be the most frustrating kinds of experiences that you have?
Well, missing out on the little things that people talk about, the little things that people kind of mutter under their breath, and jokes, and you know, a little in conversation, like people at parties and things, people will talk and joke, and I'll miss out on all the little undercurrents of that happen in the conversation, and I feel really left out. And so I feel that it's important that I learn to lip read or speech read a lot, and kind of I've learned a lot of little things that have helped me to pick up on these kinds of things that I've missed.
What are some of those little ideas you work on?
Okay, for instance, when I'm talking with people and I don't hear everything they say, I have to kind of ask a lot of questions, and instead of saying, "What? I didn't hear you," I have to think of other types of questions that can help me, like, "Oh, what do you mean?" or something like that, so I can pick up on information without having it being so obvious that I can't hear, or without saying "what" all the time over and over. So
that's a very interesting approach. It makes the people feel more comfortable with whom you're communicating.
Yes,
when you approach it that way.
Well,
and I'm sure there are a lot of hearing people who talk together, and in the communication someone like that, well, what do you really mean? So
yeah,
that's
they do.
a very fine approach. In working with hearing impaired children, Sue, what do you consider to be the keys really to mainstreaming?
Well, I think first of all that a lot of regular teachers, at least from what I've noticed, the regular teachers in the school, when they have the hearing impaired children in their classrooms for part of the time or all of the time, they don't really fully understand the problems of that child. There's a lot of little things that they can do to help the child. I think the most important thing is that they understand the hearing impairment and what that child's going through. Because in the classroom, the child should be like sitting in the front, so he or she can get the most benefit from the lecture or whatever she's listening to. I think and the teacher should be aware that this child has a hearing impairment, so the child's not facing the class or facing the board while the child's sitting there trying to pick up on what she's saying. But also the teacher should be aware that that child might not be hearing everything, and so there are other helps that that child can have, like note takers, or that she can have a written record of whatever she said, so she can help the child with that. Or, you know, there's a lot of little things, just so she's aware and understands the problem, so she can help the child as best she can.
Do you think attitudes are very important in the whole process? The way the teacher looks at the child, well, this is a deaf child, the child can't do it. Talk to that a minute, will you?
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Okay, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that, I think, is really important, that the hearing clinician or the teacher of the hearing impaired that comes in and helps this child should help the teacher to really understand that this child can do just what any other child in that classroom can do, regardless of the hearing impairment. And so the speech clinician or hearing clinician or whatever that comes in, they should help that teacher to see the child in that light, without, you know, regardless of the hearing. I mean, don't look at the hearing impairment. Look at the child and what the child can do. Because
many of the hearing children in the classroom will model after the teacher, won't they? That is, if the teacher accepts the hearing impaired child, the students are more likely to accept the child. Does that have any bearing on it?
I think so. Yes, that's true. I think that that would open up the path for those children to accept that child, you know, much easier.
All right, thanks, Sue. It's been nice having you with us today, and you have a pleasant day, and we'll get back again sometime.
Okay. Thank you.
Elaine, it's nice to visit with you this afternoon. Have you had a pleasant day at school? Have you had a pleasant day at work?
Of course.
You notice I said at school, and you looked at me rather puzzled, because you're not going to school now, are you?
No, of course not. I feel that I'm about to do it because it seems so strange.
Yes, well, it's nice to have you with us at the university again. Elaine, I'd like to have you give your full name, face the camera, give your full name, and talk a little bit about your life, where you were born, about your hearing loss, the usual kind of information that will be very helpful to our audience. So would you talk a little bit about your life facing towards the camera?
First of all, I'm going to tell you about my life. I was born deaf by my treatment. I was born by my mother on a factory plan. My human life was not a beginning.
It's fine. Let's go ahead. This is fine. This is what we want the audience to be aware of. You are doing very nicely, Elaine. So just go right ahead. Your mother had an RH factor.
Yeah.
And that was a part of the reason probably why you have a hearing loss.
Yeah.
So go right ahead.
Okay.
Where did you start school?
Where
did you start school? When did you start school?
When I was about 4 years old, my parents had to suffer about my human life because the technology for system for now about my different. I was 4 years old.
You just wondered and wondered, and no one seemed to be able to help them determine what was the matter with you. Is that right?
But I can listen some when small.
When you were tiny. All
Yeah.
right. What kind of a hearing loss do you have, Elaine?
I can remember what I have.
You don't remember what you have. Is it a severe loss, a profound loss?
I have a severe loss. Something like
A
that.
severe loss. All right.
But now I'm deaf.
You have lost quite a bit of your hearing, haven't you, since that time? Because of infections and fevers and...
I have a little button. And I have a tube in my nose.
You've had tubes in your ears. All right.
And
When they found out that you had a hearing loss, you were about 4 years old.
4 years old.
Then what happened?
Then I went to driving. I was in a Christmas party.
Christine Paulson tutored you in a private program. All right.
I started to stop now. And he told my mother, why did I go to Portland, Oregon? Because the only place I was on.
Okay, what was the name of the place in Portland, Oregon that you went to?
Dr. Martha or do the death.
All right.
And
How long were you there?
when I was in good, I started that Christmas party told them that my mother got to our go. My mother told her that she does not fear. She does not fear. But I'm ready for it. So I went back to the death in Ireland. And for this now, from 16 to 14 years old. Then I'm